It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. Give me a follow on social media at Randy Wang Radio and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Today has been an awful day in Los Angeles. And that is because an LAPD officer was killed in the line of duty, Sergeant Xiao Deng, at 2 a.m. on the 405 when trying to help people that were in another accident. He saw a car accident in the carpool lane on the southbound side of the 405 at 2 a.m. Gets his lights on, pulls over behind it so no cars will crash into it, gets out of the car to assist the drivers. A car hits him and kills one of the other drivers that was in the other accident. This caused the 405 freeway to be closed for 12 hours. By the way, if you'd like to honor Sergeant Xiao Deng, who served with the LAPD for over 25 years, 26 years specifically, you can honor him by looking at his profile on odmp.org. That is the Officer Down Memorial page that remembers all of law enforcement's heroes. odmp.org. Thanks to Dennis Zine for sending that link. And you can read about him, learn about him. You can write a reflection about him, especially if you're in law enforcement. It's a tragic day. There was a procession going to the coroner's office. It has been awful. And maybe in that 12-hour investigation, we could figure out how something like this won't happen again. I don't know. That section of the 405 is extraordinarily dark, partially because it's a canyon, but partially because we've had people ripping out copper wire at all the lights, and a lot of those lights have been out for years and years and years. I don't know what contributed to this. I know also, this is just a fact of life, people drive like maniacs in the middle of the night. And it makes me reflect on, for so many years, working for this very radio station, I was on those freeways in the early hours of the morning, mostly at 4 a.m., but for a year it was at 3 a.m. And I'm very lucky that I never got into an accident, because it's almost like, as much as I hate it and as much as it drives me crazy, at least when you're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the 405 freeway at 10 o'clock, there's not a lot of likelihood that you're going to get into a major accident or at least a fatal accident. But it's one of those things, being born and raised in Southern California, you do think about. We're all forced to be in our cars, and that can be incredibly dangerous with how bad the roads are, how bad the lighting is, and how bad some of the drivers are. So, say a prayer tonight for Sergeant Xiao Deng. This is an unbelievable tragedy. He was transported to the hospital. He did not survive. The other driver, we don't know any information about them, but they were declared dead at the scene. We don't know anything else yet. We don't know exactly who was the driver that crashed into to Sergeant Deng. We don't know what exactly the information was with that, if that driver is okay, if they stopped after that. We don't know. But on top of the horrific, awful tragedy that was what happened on the 405 freeway, there's also the irritation of what happened after. Because this is one of the fatal designs, one of the most awful designs of this city, is that when one freeway goes down, the entire city grinds to a halt. CHP obviously had to do an investigation. I don't know if they needed to do an investigation for 12 hours, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They decided they needed to shut down the 405 South indefinitely. And 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., probably not too big of a deal. But I, like most of you, woke up and saw the notifications around 6 a.m. At this time, we didn't even know that there was a sergeant involved. All we knew is there's some kind of crash on the 405, and this thing was closed. And like 2 million other people who live in Los Angeles County in the San Fernando Valley, the 405 is how you get to the West Side. The 405 for so many people is how you get to work. And if the 405 isn't working, well, you're left with very few good options. Now, the first thing that I did when I saw this closure was call all the people that I know that I work with that live in the San Fernando Valley. So that's Missy in sales, Kevin in promotions, and Louis, our program director. They all happen to live in different parts of the San Fernando Valley, and they all use the 405 at different times of the morning. And Kevin and Missy were like, yeah, we told everyone we're working from home today. There's no way we're getting to Culver City. Louis, my program director, was in the middle of trying to figure out a way to get there. Beverly Glen wasn't working, so he was going to go over to Coldwater. About an hour later, this is probably at like 7:30 in the morning when I talked to him then. An hour later, he sends an email to everybody. He's working from home today. He turned around. He said, screw it. And as much as I would have loved to send out an email saying, hey, I'm doing it too, I knew somebody had to be at the radio station to physically run the board for the noon to 3 show. I can't just call out for that at last minute's notice. It throws a wrench into a whole bunch of other people's schedules, and it would be quite selfish. So I start looking at my options, because option A is, well, just sit there and deal with it. And it's at this point that I start pulling out my trusty app. Oh, the apps. I use Apple Maps solely because it comes up when I have my CarPlay on my Chevy Bolt. I don't think it's any better than Google Maps. I don't know if it's any worse, but I will say when I have needed it the most, it has always steered me in the wrong direction. And I think most of the apps do. Because it kept giving me different suggestions. If I just left the app open and said that I need to get from the San Fernando Valley to Culver City, it would tell me one way, which is sit on the 405. And at that point, this is 9 a.m., it said it will take you 2 hours and 40 minutes, which would put me right at the radio station, 11:45. You know, if that's accurate and there's no other slowdowns, and like that's a little too close for comfort. You know, someone's got to be there at noon, especially when Johnny was also late, even though he doesn't live anywhere near this. That's another story for another day. So I needed to get there with a comfortable buffer. I don't just get there and show up. I got to get there and download all the sound and get everything ready to go. So what are my options? Well, option A is sit on the 101 and take the 10. I feel like I'm doing an episode of the Californians now. You take 101 all the way to 110 to the 10 and kind of loop around through some of the busiest parts of the city. It said that was going to take 2 hours. And I know those are parts of the freeway that notoriously can not only have accidents, but can slow down immediately. And now that's a slower route. It was also telling me, and this is probably the route I should have gone with, take the 5 all the way over to, take the 405 north to the 118 to the 5, take the 5 all the way over to the 110 and loop down to the 10 freeway. I probably should have done that one. But for some reason, of all the options it kept giving me, and none of them were good, I decided to do the one with the least amount of red on the map. And so I decided to do the route that I thought, based on the options that Apple was giving me, was going to get me to the radio station with enough time. And that was to go all the way west on the 101 freeway to Calabasas and take those canyon roads to PCH and take PCH all the way to the 10 freeway. And what do you know? I could get to work in an hour and 15 minutes instead of 2 hours or 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I said, okay, this is the route I'm taking. I'm already stressed out beyond belief because I don't know if you know this about me. Driving drives me crazy. Driving in traffic drives me crazy. I'm a very, very, very blessed person. I'm a very lucky person that this is the most annoying thing about my life, but it doesn't make it any less annoying. Especially when I spent all of last week in beautiful Dallas, Texas, sitting in a pool while doing my show prep because I didn't have to drive because I was on a work remote situation. Can't wait to do that again real soon. So I'm already stressed out at this point, so I slide into a Carl's Jr. because I'm going to need some hamburgers to get me through this. Yeah, I would argue the majority of the drive-thruing I do nowadays is solely because I'm stressed out about traffic. It's not even about hunger. It's about this little thing in my brain that says, I'm about to be really annoyed and I deserve a treat. I need it. Make me happy for 10 whole minutes. And then I feel bloated the rest of the day. It's a really bad thing. So I get on the 101 freeway, get all the way up to Valley Circle. And you know what? There's not a lot of traffic going this way. There are some cars because the thing is, it's not like I'm the only one with this app. So there's definitely probably a half a dozen people at the exact same time that I decide to take this route. They're deciding to take this route too. I also thought to myself, why didn't it tell me to take Topanga? But whatever, I'm sure it's no big deal. Because, Topanga Canyon Boulevard is reopened. And even though that isn't super convenient, it is a straight shot from that side of the valley to PCH. But no. The app knows best. So I get off at Valley Circle and take Valley Circle to Mulholland Way. I don't think I knew was a thing. And now I am at the beginning of what felt like some of the windiest roads I have ever been in Southern California. It takes me from Mulholland Way to something called like Saddle Peak Drive. And now we're down to one lane. And I don't mean one lane on each side. I mean roads that are just one lane where there's a stop sign and you have to make sure there's nobody coming your way before you can go. It honestly felt like if you've ever been to the island of Maui, the road to Hana, except there wasn't a whole lot of beautiful scenery and you were kind of freaked out and scared because at this point, another thing that I didn't plan on that Apple didn't warn me about is, I'm driving into a cell phone dead zone. I'm driving into the deep Santa Monica Mountains where there is no cell reception, which also means there's no data, which means all of the things that I was listening to on YouTube to prep for the noon to 3 show and for this show, well, guess what? Now they're no longer working. And if I get lost or the map app suddenly craps out, I have no idea where I am. So I am on the windiest, tiniest roads, making sure to pay as much attention as possible. I'm also starting to realize that this is going to take way longer than it said it would because the maximum speed you're going on some of these roads is 20 miles an hour if you're lucky. And at this point, it's starting to pile up because a lot of other cars are doing the exact same thing. I finally get to PCH. Well, I get to the light where PCH is. And after going for a very, 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 very long, windy road on Tuna Canyon. I've been on La Tuna Canyon. I've never been to Tuna Canyon. And I sit there for probably 15 minutes just to make that left onto PCH because everyone else had the same idea as me. And once you get to Tuna Canyon, what's the next light just a block over? Topanga Canyon. I'm convinced that Apple Maps still thinks Topanga Canyon is closed. Or maybe so many people took that and that wasn't necessarily a good idea either. Now I'm on Stop and Go PCH, seeing a little bit of the destruction from the Palisades. I haven't been on PCH since well before this. And I crawl and crawl and crawl, hit every red light possible, finally get to the 10 freeway. And what do you know? The 10 is slow at the 405. But I make it at 11 o'clock, 2 hours later. I just needed to get that off my chest because it's an indictment of a few things. This city is an absolute mess. And one horrific tragedy can shut down movement for the entire city. You know what was funny, too, is I know so many people that said they were going to work remotely. I'm sure people called in sick or said, I'm not coming in today. So I thought maybe the freeways will be wide open when I get back on the 405 at 3 p.m. Nope. Not even a little bit. No, the freeways were still awful. The freeways were still a nightmare. The freeways were still slow. I spent 3 hours today on the road reflecting on my life choices, mostly being, why did I ever fly back from Dallas? As much as I dislike humidity because I'm born and raised in Southern California and I don't care for it and I don't understand why it doesn't get cold at night in certain parts of the country, this is worse. Sitting in this traffic is worse. And it's something that happens even without a tragedy like this on a daily basis. The other indictment I have is for my Maps app. That was a complete and utter failure because I'm sure there was a better way to go than going all the way to Calabasas to the windiest, I don't even know if you can call them roads. Pretty sure one of them was dirt at one point. But that was my traffic nightmare story. If you have a similar story, something that you had to deal with today, if your commute was an absolute nightmare this morning and you need a place to vent, you can do so right here. Why don't you give me a call? I could use the sounding board. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you need to get off your chest just how awful your commute was this morning, maybe your map app screwed you over too, give me a call. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It was an awful day in Los Angeles. A police sergeant was killed on the 405 freeway at 2 a.m. The CHP shut down the 405 for 12 hours, and that screwed up everybody's commute. And if you need a place to vent about how awful it was to get to work today, this is your opportunity. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. I just shared with you how awful my commute was. 2 hours going through the windiest roads of the Santa Monica Mountains because Apple Maps thought that was better than taking Topanga. If you need to vent about just how awful your commute was, how awful your map apps are, give me a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Jatandra in West L.A. Jatandra, hello.
Hello. Thank you. Yes, this morning the commute was absolutely horrendous. I had no idea what was going on at first, and midway through my commute, then I find out the unfortunate tragedy that happened. And I was stuck. I could not get out anywhere. There was no exits for a while, and my bladder just kept getting more and more full. I had to stop drinking the coffee and then the water, and just pray to God that everything's going to be okay, and I'll make it to work.
Oh my goodness, that is scary.
I could have found an exit eventually, and then turned back and worked at my other location, but they needed me more at the other location going towards West Los Angeles, and I said, okay, well, let's just keep going and see how far I get. And sure enough, I didn't reach work till about 12:30 or so in the afternoon. It was incredible. I've never had this experience in my life. This was the worst.
Yeah, this is one of those commutes that you'll always remember, and hopefully you found a bathroom in time. That is one of those situations where you literally feel trapped.
As soon as I got off the Getty, Center Drive is where they made us get off. I kept looking for a McDonald's or a Jack in the Box, nothing. And then I just finally made it to work, and I said, okay, let me go now.
Oh, boy. You know what? You deserve hazard pay for coming in today. I really, I feel for you. I've been there, and that is just awful. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. You remember those days where you're on the 405 for 4 hours or more? For some reason, it's always the 405. Just the worst freeway in the entire country. I could do a contest. I could have people call in, and you'd think maybe a bunch of people would call in and say it's the 91. No, it's the 405. If your commute today was a total nightmare and you need to vent about it, give me a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. An officer of LAPD, a sergeant, was killed in the line of duty trying to protect some people who were hurt in a car accident at the 405 at Getty at 2 a.m. when a car crashed into him. That shut down the freeway for 12 hours, and anyone who tried to get from the valley to the west side had quite the harrowing experience. So if you want to share yours, give me a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay on hold. We get to more of your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randykabc@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Today was an awful day in Los Angeles. We lost a police sergeant. Sergeant Xiao Deng was killed in the line of duty on the 405 freeway at 2 a.m. when he pulled over his vehicle, turned on his lights when he saw an accident, and then a car crashed into him, killing him and one of the other drivers. We don't know any more details about that, but CHP shut down the 405 freeway for 12 hours, which means that if you were in the San Fernando Valley and you were trying to get to the west side, the entire city was shut down. So if you need a vent about just how bad the traffic was this morning, now's your chance. Give me a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Lots of people on hold right now. Let's start with Robert in Westchester. Robert, hello.
Hey, Randy. How are you doing? Don't want to make light of the tragedy, certainly, but I did want to point out that the road you were on was Topanga.
You are very correct.
In Topanga.
It was Topanga Canyon Boulevard that my app should have told me to use. Not Topanga. I'm saying it wrong. Rob Bonta knows which way it is.
You're the best. Thanks.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. I wonder how many people try to take Sepulveda. We have weird street names here. What can I tell you?
In Topanga.
Let's go to Ricardo in L.A. Ricardo, hello.
Hey, how you doing, Randy? I commute from Palmdale to LAX, and every time I use the station on my alarm on my clock. And when I was still in bed when I heard like the 405 is closed. Like, oh my God, I had to go all the way to downtown, like you said, the little circle. And man, I was at work in an hour 20 minutes, but my coworker, he was calling me every 20 minutes. And he was like, I haven't moved. Like, what do you want me to do for you? He's like, yeah, I'm stuck over here. He got to work at almost 12 o'clock from the Valley to LAX. It was a nightmare for him, not for me, though. Thanks to you guys, because I always listen to you.
Well, you know, that is one thing to say for people that stay informed. If you knew about this, you tried to find your way around it. If you didn't know, you weren't listening to the radio, you didn't turn on any of the apps, you just went with your commute as you normally do, you'd just be sitting there like a ton of other people with no way around. So you commute from Palmdale to LAX every day?
Yes, and that 14 freeway, I call it a roller coaster. Because you're going to see people going down the hill doing 100. You know, that's why I leave my house at 5 in the morning, so I won't be in a rush cruising, because I know how it is on the 14 to the 405. I've been doing almost 3 years, and I was in my house 2 hours before time, so I won't have no issues like this morning.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Ricardo, I bless you for having to deal with that every day and for figuring out ways around it, because, yeah, people drive like maniacs out there. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Oh, my goodness. Just when I feel like I can complain and complain and complain, someone calls in who has a better attitude than me, that has a commute that's doubly worse than mine. But, hey, this is part of living in L.A. Let's go to Kenny in San Fernando. Kenny, hello.
Hello, Randy. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Yeah. So my commute is about a mile every day to and from work. But when I get on that 405 going to LAX, I want to pull my hair out.
It's a mile, and you still got to get on the 405?
No, a mile every, when I have to go to LAX or go buy, supplies or stuff, or when I have to get on the 405, I feel like I want to pull my hair out, especially during rush hour.
It's just the worst. It's one of the reasons I avoid LAX at almost all costs unless you totally have to, because that freeway does not operate. And it slows down even when there aren't accidents. It just slows down for no reason. There's no rhyme to it. It's just awful all the time. And I'm sure you were around as I was when they shut down the 405 for a whole weekend to expand the lanes, and it didn't do a damn thing.
Armageddon, right?
Yeah, I remember it.
Well, I remember that people were on the freeway dining, having fine dining with wine, and that was a good. But I have a trick that everybody needs to follow, or not. It's a certain way that everybody needs to follow to reduce traffic. And if everybody followed it, traffic would be reduced. And if everybody did it in one day, and then it would be amazing. If everybody followed, it would we work like bumblebees.
And what's that?
If 3 or more people pass you on the right and you're in the fast 2 lanes, choose a slower lane. What do you think would happen if everybody followed that rule?
I think if everybody followed that rule, we would see a lot less constant lane changing, which is part of the reason, all the going back and forth, why the freeway slows down so much. You're totally right about that.
And you notice when you go up the 405 on the Sepulveda Pass, as soon as you go up over the hill, and then all of a sudden it's just like smooth sailing sometimes. Like, wait, why are we stopped going up the 405 on the Sepulveda Pass? Why are we coming to a stop? Because it's all the slow drivers that are not being courteous and moving over to a slower. You want to drive slow? That's fine. Drive slow, but just choose a slower lane. Don't hold everybody else up.
You're totally right about that. Thank you so much for the call, Kenny. Appreciate it. I think it's also time to get rid of the carpool lanes. I don't think they do a damn thing. And even though I have an electric car, I never got the sticker so I could get in the so I can get in the carpool lane, because the carpool lane is never moving either. Let's go to Kenny in Latuna Canyon. Kenny, hello.
Hi, it's Teddy. What we're having here is the DWP allowing a string. This is a new development, high-end horse property. We have no lights on the right side going up the street. Yesterday, somebody broke into a house, burglarized it unbelievably. But my main concern is they're stealing the wire in some areas from to the lights. There's an 89-year-old woman that walks her dog down the sidewalk, and it's a big area, and all these wires, they're live, are sitting, and you have to go out into the street. And I'm concerned about this woman, possibly getting electrocuted, because these wires, from what I understand, at least that's what it says on the side of the lamppost, are 400 volts. That ought to be shocking news to the DWP. And this has been going on for 7 months.
Oh, I know. It's happening all over the place. And it's so ridiculous how there doesn't seem to be an answer for this. But these things take so long to fix. And we don't want to seem to do anything about the aftermarket recycling, because it's not like you go sell this stuff at MacArthur Park. If you're stealing copper wire, you're selling it at a recycling center or a smelter, and we don't go after those people for some reason. Sometimes those smelters are selling it right back to the city, and that is also why you have so many lights out on the 405 freeway at a place like Getty Center. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Shelley in West Hills. Shelley, hello.
Yeah, hi, Randy. So I take my favorite route. I live in the West Valley, and I go to UCLA area every day. And I didn't hear about the accident yet, and I figured it's summertime. Traffic's a little bit better when there's no school, and I had to stop for my elderly boss at a grocery store on my way, so I have all of these groceries and cold stuff in my car. Then I come to find out that the 405 is closed. So I put on my app, And what I try to do is do just the opposite of what the app says, because it's bringing everybody else that way. So I have my favorite little route, and I'm in this really nice area of Sherman Oaks on my favorite little route. And unfortunately, there's room on the left and room on the right for cars to make up their own lane where 4 different places converge at this one stop sign. It's kind of a nightmare on a day like this. So I'm just sitting. I've been trying to do Zen behavior while I'm driving. My boss is really cool about me getting there whenever I get there safely. But this one guy, he comes up to my right side, makes up a lane, comes into my right side and thinks he's pulling in front of me. And I've already been waiting in this line for 20 minutes, just to get through this one little area. And he's like waving at me. And I said, no, I'm not. My Zen behavior went away. I said, I'm not letting you in. I'm looking at him now. I'm 65, but I'm in pretty good shape. Okay. I'm pretty tough. I'm looking at him. He's about my age. And I'm thinking to myself, I can take this guy. And we kind of went at it. We didn't get out of our cars, but we came close when he realized. He starts honking. I start honking. I said, I'm not letting you in. He gives me the finger. I do the same. I'm thinking, even if he's got a gun, I don't care. I am like, this is what it brought me to this morning. It was a nightmare. Finally, he just knew I wasn't going to let him in. He didn't push it anymore. And then he just drove up further in the right lane to make somebody else, give in. But I was not giving in. So, I was ready to duke it out. I didn't care. I was really
on any normal day, line cutters can cause so many kinds of incidents. But on a day like today, that can push people, even people trying to be Zen like yourself, past their breaking point. Yeah. And this is the insanity that we have to live with, because this is an incredibly poorly designed city.
Yeah. No, anyway, I just thought I'd tell you, even at that point, I was ready to duke it out. But thank you. I really needed to vent, and I appreciate your outlet.
I'm so glad that you did. It was very entertaining. Thanks so much for the call, Shelley. Appreciate it. If you need to vent about how awful your commute was today, give me a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay on hold. More of your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Alan in Encino. Alan, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great.
Okay, so I've been doing the same commute for 38 years from Encino to my office in Santa Monica. It takes me 35 to 40 minutes. This morning took 2.5 hours. I heard about the accident early in the morning because I listened to the news very early, and I decided I better leave an hour earlier than I usually do. So I woke up an hour earlier. I figured an hour and a half, an hour 40 will get me to the office. And instead of an hour and a half, it took me 2.5 hours. But this is what I have to say to everybody listening. It was a pain in the neck. I'm a dentist, so I run a very tight schedule. It was very nerve-wracking. It was aggravating. But the bottom line is, Randy, 2 families lost loved ones today, and if the worst we can say is that we spent an extra hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours on the freeway, we should count our lucky stars. That's my comment.
That's a very good sentiment, and we should feel lucky because it can happen to any one of us at any day, and it's something that freaks me out and keeps me up at night and makes me not want to live here. Thank you so much for the call, Alan. Appreciate it. I've seen how awful the drivers are here. I know how awful the roads are here. I know the conditions. I'm so thankful I don't drive at night anymore. But this is the thing, LA is such a huge city, such an incredible city, but the traffic is so bad. And when the traffic isn't bad, the roads are scary. The people get locked into their own neighborhoods. And it's like, what's the point? What are we paying for? Thank you all so much for the calls. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email me, you can do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Ed writes in and says, I just want to tell you that I feel for you today. You're correct. There are no ways to get around LA if one freeway is down. Hoping that the rest of your week is great. Thank you so much for that, Ed. And that's really the thing. Obviously what happened was a tragedy, and we feel so awful for the police officer, the sergeant. We feel awful for the other person that was killed. That is a horrible thing. Separately from that, you can make the argument that this city is designed by idiots. And we haven't had anybody properly plan this city for a very long time, where if one freeway goes down, everything's a mess. Look at what happened with the Palisades. PCH was closed for months. Topanga Canyon was closed for months. And what did that do? Clog up the 405 to where it was even worse than it's ever been for months and months and months. And there's no relief and there's no plan. And even though Karen Bass loved to come in and say, hey, I'm going to do things like we did in the 84 Olympics and start scheduling commutes and segmenting different times and relieving the freeway, nobody in elected office gives a damn about the traffic in this city. We just are supposed to deal with it. Well, I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.